Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. A very good evening.
It's Sunday the 6th of April 2014. I actually got the date right this time, not like last week. Congratulations. Good evening everyone. Thanks for tuning in to OYM Radio. We're going to have a great show tonight. But before we crack on, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, Mary, communication channels please. When you're ready, Mary.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
046 927 1212 is the magic number. Thank you, Mary. If you're going to call in from outside the Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 469 271212. We're also going to be monitoring the chat room tonight on our own website. That's oymradio.com, and you can log in there if you wish to do so. Just go to the website, log in on the left hand side, the chat button. That's the one to click. You can log in with your real name or a pseudonym. And we're also going to be monitoring the chat on the People's Internet Radio this evening also. So I'm going to say big hi to everyone in both chat rooms. Alan.
Cheers, Steve. Now, we've had a little bit of move around in the studio because you probably remembered one or two interviews that we did. We had a server crash. So we've moved things around, and the computers are all around Steve at the moment. And it's like NASA where Steve is at the moment. So we now say Steve is a co-host / producer of the show because he's controlling everything. He has his finger on the button.
I'm wearing sunblock factor 50 as well from all the radiation.
So yeah, he is in control. Now I have a little, I don't know whether you can hear from my voice. I have a bit of a sore throat and I'm a bit nasally. Unfortunately, them chemtrails and everything else that's going, I think I picked up something. So I'll apologise now if I'm coughing or I move away from the microphone for a few minutes. It's just one of them things. Anyway, let's crack on. As usual, we have a few things to talk about. Our guest on the show tonight is a lady called Solaris BlueRaven. We're going to be talking to Solaris shortly and we'll talk about her biography, a little bit of a bio that we have on Solaris before we bring her in. So we'll talk to Solaris in a few minutes. But as usual, we'll catch up on a few things that happened during the week. Now, the first thing is the Humanity Alchemy event seems to be having a few problems, and many of the people advertised are not going to be speaking at the event. If you remember, Tony got asked to get involved with Tony from Synchronicity got asked to get involved in this with the person or the group that were organising this, and unfortunately they're experiencing a few issues. So if you do decide that you're not going, obviously you'll have to request a refund or maybe pop along and see the speakers that will be left on the list, but apparently there's a lot of the speakers have pulled out. So if you are planning to go over, just clarify everything and contact the organisers and ask them what's going on and who's going to be on. That's I wouldn't like to see people getting them, obviously out of pocket with that if the people they're saying is going to be there are not going to be there. So just to let you know about that. Steve.
Yeah, and speaking of events, we're going to talk about the Bases project, and that is the Bases at the Barge. That is April the 27th. We did have some information in during the week saying that the whole thing was going to be cancelled, but it seems now that it's just a cancellation of the venue. But the Bases at the Barge, April 27th, is going to go ahead. It's an evening of a social evening with chat. It's going to be April 27th from 11 a.m. It's an evening, I said, a day, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's going to be Tony Topping, Cathy Morgan, Jeff Scott, and the first public presentation by James Casbolt, a.k.a. Michael Prince. It's going to be €5. No, it's not going to be €5. I'm sorry, it's going to be £5. £5 sterling per head, and you're going to pay at the door. It's going to be pub, lunch, and refreshments available. This is being held again in the Barge Inn. It's Honey Street in Wiltshire. You can check out the Barge Inn. That's the-barge-inn.com for more information. And it says here that the nearest train to the event, the nearest train station is Pewsey. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Am I pronouncing that right, Alan? Because I know you live in the UK. P-E-W-S-E-Y. Pewsey? Pewsey. Well, I don't know. But that's where it's going to be. And there's a note on the website from Wales just saying that the previous event at the Bodenham Manor is cancelled. So yeah, we thought that the whole event was cancelled, but it's not. It's just the change of venue.
I don't have them details, I'm afraid. But
well, it sounds like Pusey.
Is it? Okay, no worries. Okay, now also don't forget that we are actually on Facebook, or NSA Book, if you want to call it NSA Book. So if you want to catch up, if you want to go up there, and if you go on Facebook and just like the actual page, because all the shows that we put up, or any videos that we put up on Facebook as well as on our YouTube channel. So don't forget that. If you want to go up there and like and just become a member, or just like the page, and any links that we put up, you'll receive them in your Facebook. And also we have t-shirts available and bumper stickers available as usual. You know where to get them if you just pop along to our little shop and order them from there. All proceeds go to supporting OYM. So it'd be much appreciated if you do that. That'd be brilliant. If you don't have any money at all, which is probably most of the country anyway, if there's any ads on the website that you like, just click on the ad and we get a few cents. We get a few shekels for that as well. So there you go. How's your week, Steve?
I'm glad you asked. No,
go ahead.
My week's been good. Just to the person who got the t-shirts last week, I know you have them washed and ironed. Could you please send them back? We've nothing to wear. Sorry, it's a tasteless joke I've been dying to use for ages. T-shirts are available and they're very, very sexy. The women are guaranteed to attract men if you wear one of our t-shirts, and the men are guaranteed to attract, I was going to say other men, women in our t-shirts.
Hey, whatever works for you.
Whatever works, yeah. Yeah, my week's been good. Anyone who's living in Ireland at this time will probably know that we do have some elections coming up in May, and the politicians are already busy going around knocking on doors and
oh yes,
promising the sun, moon and stars. I've actually, speaking of Facebook or NSA or FBI book, whatever you want to call it, I've already seen a post from one of our local candidates on the net from Labour. That's the party she's with. So I wrote her kind of a little, not even a two-liner, just a couple of lines. Say, look, best of luck in the election, but due to the whole party whip system, any changes that you're proposing or promising people on the doors, at least let them know that there's probably bugger all chance of these changes ever seeing the light of day. She wrote back to me and said, yeah, she's fully aware of the party whip system, and but she's kind of a new voice, or a new fresh blood, if you like, and she reckons that she'll be able to do a lot of good. I wished her the best of luck, but I said I won't be supporting her party because they're the ones who are kind of in coalition government at the moment, who are making an absolute shambles of this country. So I wish her luck, but told her that because of the whole party whip system, it's wrong. We need a direct democracy model of government. To which she actually, I was surprised, she wrote back and she said, yeah, that she would support something like that. But listen, best of luck getting it in. And I was actually out the back garden yesterday, and there was more politicians coming around. This time it was Fine Gael. Oh no, Fianna Fáil. Yeah, they're the opposition party at the moment. It's normally, for anyone who's not in Ireland, it's normally Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, or a coalition of, someone else with either of those parties. But I think Fianna Fáil are the original party who got us into this deep excrement that we're in at the moment, and Fine Gael just made sure that we stayed there. So Fianna Fáil were going around yesterday. I actually missed them. I was out the back. There were two doors up when I actually came back into the house. My wife said they had been around, and she showed me the leaflet, and I was actually going to go out after them just for the hell of it, and she said, no, just leave it, will you? Just throw the leaflet in the bin and go back out the back to whatever you were doing. So I just decided, you know what, I'll just do that, because go out and I would have kind of said my piece to these guys. It would have been water off a duck's back. It wouldn't have made any difference whatsoever, and I probably would have just ended up getting stressed. And who needs stress? I don't need stress. Exactly. Anyway, speaking of TV and old TV, speaking of TV, the Pat Rabbitte, the Minister for Communications, God rest his soul. I mean that sincerely, and maybe we won't have long to wait until anyway. No, I won't go down the road. But he's come out recently again. Anyone again who's a long time listener to the show will not, or especially if you're in Ireland, will know like the old TV license. Well, that chestnut has reared its head again, and he's come out now. He's on record as saying that obviously the TV license is going to be getting scrapped. Yay, says everybody. But he's introducing the broadcasting charge, and he's on record well, he was on record before as saying this, and again yesterday as saying, it doesn't matter, now listen to this, it doesn't matter whether you own a TV or whether you do not own a TV. It doesn't matter if you do or don't have a computer. It doesn't matter if you do or don't have any device capable of receiving internet or internet broadcast or a TV signal. It doesn't matter. You're going to be forced to pay the broadcasting charge.
So even if you live in a wooden hut,
if you live in
an open fire and that's it,
it doesn't matter.
You need a broadcast.
It does. It's because what he's basically, when you read between the lines, what he's saying is these TV signals are there. They're there whether you want them or not. If you have no apparatus to receive them, that's not his problem. But you're going to be charged. That makes as much sense. I think we discussed this before. It makes as much sense as charging pedestrians road tax. Because, well, the roads are there. Okay, you don't use them. You use the footpath because you're a pedestrian. But the road is there. It's provided. Whether you use it or not, it makes absolutely no sense. And I really hope, anyone who read that article yesterday, I hope, anyone who read the article and who is currently paying a TV license, I hope they wake the hell up. Because they really need to. And I mean, it's just, it makes no sense to me. But anyway, last thing on my list was, I was having a chat with my father. We were just kind of having a bit of a reminisce, because he's open-minded as well, and we were talking about old TV programs. So, we were just shooting the breeze last night, and I fired up YouTube, and hope Mr. Rabbit's not listening to this. I fired up YouTube, so I did, and I typed in a program that my father used to watch years and years ago when I was only a nipper, and it's called Crown Court. And it's basically, I've never seen it before, but I watched it last night just to see what the hell it was all about. And it was made in, I think, like 1970, 1971. And it basically, it began last night with, they're telling you about a story of a guy who he robbed because he needed to eat, so he robbed some food. But he was a well-to-do guy, and they kind of give you a brief, maybe 2 minutes on the story, and then the rest of the episode is the whole court case and how it pans out. And just when you're looking at it, I watched it last night. It was about half an hour long, I think, but I got an education. I mean, it was old kind of English court antics, but just because now I know I have a certain kind of level of understanding, I was listening to the wording last night, and the words, like even the guy who was pretending to be who was acting as the judge, yes, even the words that he used and the phrases, when you think about it, now that we know certain things, you could hear the words, and he was saying to the guy, "Do you understand?" And you're going, "Oh, that means do you stand under my authority?"
Yeah.
And, kind of things like that. But if you get a chance, if anyone gets a chance, if you have a few minutes to spare, check it out anyway. Crown Court is the thing. It's a couple of episodes.
Where did you watch it? On YouTube, is it?
On YouTube, yeah.
Would it be on XBMC as well?
Ah, yeah, beyond. Well, that's yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think you can get YouTube through that. Yeah.
Cool.
That's about it. I'm not going to bore you any more details. It's actually a nice day here today. Chemtrails are plenty the past couple of days, and I know a good friend Terry down in Wexford, he's doing Trojan work there on exposing the chemtrails and what's behind it. Terry has recently needed 100 likes on his YouTube channel so he can start doing live events. He got that within I think 10 minutes of asking people to subscribe, and he's going to start doing live events. So check that out as well, Terry. I can't think of the chap's surname at the moment. Lawton, Lawton. So just check out Terry Lawton there on YouTube and check out his channel also. And that's my week in a nutshell. Alan, how's your week?
Well, there you go.
Well, there we go.
Funny you should ask. Funny you should ask.
I ask every week.
Okay, no worries.
It's on the script.
It's on the script. There's here. How was your week? Okay. Now, as some of you probably have realised, I've got the 2 videos up on YouTube, as promised last week, about the light bulbs. Now, I'm hoping nobody's going to be emailing in saying, you forgot this, and the luminosity of this, and the this and that. Look, it's only a basic YouTube video to show you the 3 different types of light bulbs. You have the incandescent light bulb, you have the dangerous CFL light bulb, and you have the LED light bulb. And as you can see from the video, if you go and watch the video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, you'll see that the LED light, wins hands down. Now, I know they're expensive, but they're obviously going to be, you can get them cheap. I just happened to buy that one. That was €16, would you believe, to buy that LED. But I just wanted one for testing. I'll be definitely looking around and getting them cheaper, and I believe you can get them cheaper on eBay anyway. So, It's only just a rough beginner's guide to just showing you the 3 different types of light bulbs and the luminosity from each bulb and the wattage used and the power used. If you haven't seen them, pop over to our YouTube channel, check out the video, and you can see the 3 different types of bulbs that we use for the test in the OYM laboratory, otherwise known as my dinner table. No expense spared.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the lab. You could have watched the Delph before you filmed the video.
I know, you should have done. And the other video that we put up was the RFID scanning. Now, I use my mobile phone as an example, but the criminals out there who are using the RFID scanners are using more advanced technology. Now, with the mobile phone example, you actually have to have it on top of the card to scan it. It's only kind of proof of concept, okay? But the RFID scanners that professionals use, they can be probably about 1 foot to 2 foot away from you, and they'll be able to scan your card, okay? So, and there's loads of information on YouTube, and there's guys doing this on YouTube and showing you how it works. So, but I just wanted to show, because I think one of the listeners, he was telling somebody about it, and they wouldn't believe him. So I think, well, okay, I'll do a demo, and I'll show them using my mobile phone and using a RFID card to show how simple it is to scan a card. Okay, and so the YouTube video is up there as well, and there's one more video that we have to do. I have to get the bits and pieces for, and when that's done and ready to go, then we will do that. Now, the other thing quickly is that, I don't know what you heard, Steve, but Aircom are in a bit of a bother this week.
No, I haven't heard.
You know, I actually don't like Aircom. I never have liked Aircom.
Neither do I. Not even when they were Telecom Air and before that.
Yeah,
I had a big issue with them, but that's another story for another day.
Well, apparently Aircom, what's happened is their computer system, although you got a bill, now I'd be curious to get Vin's take on this, and maybe Vin might mention it on his show later on, but Aircom have sent out a bill saying the bill is being paid, but they didn't take the money out of the account because the computer system wasn't working right. So now Aircom are coming to chase the customers to get the money of the bills that haven't been paid, although customers have received a copy of their bill saying paid in the post. So where do you legally stand with that? If you have a receipt for something and they didn't take the money, whose fault is it?
Well,
theirs or...
I'm just going to... I think personally that if they've issued you with a piece of paper saying paid, but you know in your own heart and soul that it hasn't been paid, well, I think maybe they probably will get the money. I think, you know, if you haven't paid your bill, you haven't paid your bill.
Yeah, but if you have receipts saying it's been paid.
Yeah, I think we need Harry or Vin on this one.
Yeah, I think Harry or Vin. I think that's something that Vin will need to have to...
well, actually, Vin just says he wishes Aircom the best of luck.
Look, collecting. I reckon that's it. Okay, let's get our guest on.
Yeah. He's waiting in the green room long enough.
Waiting in the green room, we bring on Solaris BlueRaven. Right, Solaris BlueRaven is a published author, producer, writer, editor, public speaker with a professional background in psychotronic-related covert technology, surveillance, and investigative research. She is known for her experience as a test pilot for synthetic telepathy, black projects of which she discloses in her book series, Eye of the Remote. She is a world-class psychic, clairvoyant, remote viewer, systems buster for MK Ultra related programs. Solaris is also a certified black belt and has an extensive background in advanced sciences and mystical alchemy. Her website is Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives for more information if you want to check it out. And Solaris hosts a radio show called Ravenstar's Witching Hour each Saturday night, 12 Midnight EST on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Wow, that's a busy woman. Good evening, Solaris. How are you?
Good evening. It's nice to hear from both of you, and thank you for inviting me.
Great. Thank you for coming on. We are looking forward to this because... Oh, Steve.
Before we go too far in, Solaris, I have to ask, is that correct? You have a black belt in advanced sciences?
I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. Second degree.
Yeah.
Mixed martial arts now. I trained in Taekwondo, and then I moved over into Aikido and Tai Chi Qigong, and then women's advanced kickboxing. I trained in that and taught martial arts and kickboxing for a very long time.
Wow.
Excellent.
There you go.
No, I just had to ask because when it seemed black belt, the first thing I thought of was Taekwondo, because that's what my lad and Alan's lad, they're both students of Taekwondo, so I just...
Excellent.
Yeah. Check. Right, okay, so let's get into your background and what happened and the life, because, you know, before we went live, we were talking about TIs and people contacting our show and listeners who are TIs or they suffer from electric sensitivity. And sometimes, you know, there's a fine line between TIs and that condition, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But let's get into your background and how you came about being, I won't really say TI, because you don't really call it being a TI, do you?
No, not at all. I mean, I was a test pilot. I don't consider myself in any form or design the victim, and I'm not trying to relay that towards other TIs, but I think the terminology is wrong. I would say test subjects, if they want to call themselves something like that. Literally, they're being exploited and used with a type of deployment of tactical warfare that's used for, you know, military, battle, psychotronic, remote viewing, anything pertaining to those areas. I mean, they can do a lot with it. So I wouldn't really call them a targeted individual. I mean, I call them test subjects, and they get selected and picked out due to sometimes it's DNA, sometimes it's, the bloodlines, or it can be their backgrounds if they're very psychic. You know, psychics are always dragged into these programs, unfortunately. With my circumstances, started back in 2004, and back then I had a wonderful, fabulous life with a wonderful husband, and I had a family, and, you know, I was working as a land surveyor with my husband because he was a professional land surveyor, and I was his drafter, so I was making maps, topographic maps, and then I was teaching martial arts and training and writing books, and also doing healing work, which was based on DNA activation, and just doing a lot of powerful work. And, you know, it's really interesting because when they hit me with this program, literally, I mean, obviously tagged my electromagnetic field and then interfaced it onto a communication system within a high-tech computer system, artificial intelligence in an underground area, with a live handler in real time. And this happened back in 2004 after I sent a book to a high-profile musician. And after that, the whole world changed for me. I mean, literally, I was inducted into the program. I was basically trained by my handler in real time, live feed with synthetic telepathy. And he taught me pattern recognition, numbers, codes, all sorts of different things with different types of frequencies and transmissions. There were so many things. I took notes. I tried to keep my clarity as best I could. But what happens when you're engulfed with a synthetic telepathy? I mean, this isn't some sort of a microwave deployment. You're dealing with, they map your brainwaves, they map your neural circuitry, and they interface it onto a communication system in an underground area with a live handler, real time, live feed.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Let's just rewind a bit. Let's take it from. So everything was fine in your life, everything was going okay, and you sent the book to a well-known musician, and because you sent the book, they start targeting you.
Absolutely,
right?
But that particular musician is also involved in this covert threat assessment. They call it a threat assessment technology because that's what it can be used for. But what it's also being used for right now is high-profile surveillance and security work. If you're high-profile and you're in, say, a musician in the high-profile industry, or a president, or somebody beyond that, Secret Service, people with a high-profile design are usually using this type of technology for their private security. You don't need a headset, you don't need a cell phone, you don't need anything but the signal. And it's encrypted, and there are two people listening, maybe more, usually a live handler and the subject. And then, of course, it's encrypted so that a few people can interact with it. But that's the type of thing. I mean, it's ideal for surveillance and security because you're a spy bird. You literally can do anything, go anywhere. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Okay, let's just break it down bit by bit. Because there's a lot we're going to be talking about, and for people who are not new to this and new to the technology, it could be a little bit overwhelming. So. Now it's up to you whether you want to mention the musician that we were talking about.
Oh yeah, I don't have a problem mentioning Neil Pert's name. That's the person.
Okay, Neil Pert, for people who don't know, is the drummer in a band called Rush. So Neil Pert is using this advanced technology for security reasons. Why would he be using that for security reasons, first of all?
Well, first of all, it's the best kind of surveillance system you can have. You don't need a cell phone. You don't need a walkie-talkie. You don't need anything like that. They call it interconnecting. So you're interconnected in with your quote-unquote personnel, and that would be his handler, Michael J. Mossbach, who was basically his right-hand man, and Michael calls himself his ghost, or his ghost writer. So literally what they do is they interconnect with the communication system, and they travel around in real time, live feed, communicating with dialogue and synthetic telepathy, visuals, pictures, and it works. It works is the main reason, and it's also so high-tech, nobody's ever going to see it.
Okay, so he's driving around communicating with his right-hand man. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't need a cell phone, he doesn't need a walkie-talkie, he's doing it via this technology.
Absolutely.
Right, so it's just a kind of a very advanced form of communication between people.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's synthetic telepathy. That's really what it is.
Okay, so why is it that you sent him a book and all of a sudden he wants to start, doing things with you?
Well, what's really interesting is I had actually had contact with him back in the 80s, and because people said I used to write like him. And so I was like, okay, well, who is he? I didn't even know who he was. And a lot of people said, oh, well, you sound like Neil Pert. Your writing's just like his. So I wound up sending him some of my work, just out tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, and then he sent me postcards back, and he would respond. So we had a correspondence, and that started back in the 80s, and it went on into like almost the mid-90s. And then I kind of lost touch with him. People move on in consciousness. And what's interesting is I was teaching a martial arts class, and one of my kickboxing students came up to me and told me about the hardship he had been through with his last family, a lot of tragedy. And I felt really bad, and I had written a book on transmutation through ascension. I thought, well, he probably really liked this book, so that's the book I sent. And if anybody researches that book I wrote, it's on spiritual evolution, DNA activation, ascension, and things like that. It's a very positive book. And so I sent that to him, and within a week, everything was literally under surveillance. My house, my computer, my phones. I had live plants in the area, and then I was hit with a communication system and live feed real time. And at that point, when they were hitting me live feed real time, it wasn't an imposter. They acknowledged who they were. Michael J. Mossbach, I didn't even know who he was until he identified himself. And then I physically met him out on Maui in person to confirm this data. So this is for real. And it's funny because the whole case got swept under the carpet. But I suspect he selected me because my spiritual design, without saying this with arrogance, I'm very psychic and I was pretty amped up at the time. And I feel like I was a good candidate for the technology. Also, my martial arts background, they hit me in my peak. I mean, I couldn't have been in better shape. I had a great life, very grounded, spiritual, martial artist. I had it all going for me. I mean, there was no reason for them not to, induct me into the program, really.
Okay. We've just had a request from one of our listeners. Now, over here in Ireland, we do talk quite fast. But you definitely have Irish blood in you. There's no doubt about that. And we're asking you to slow down. So, because there's so much technology, there's so many things going on in your life and what happened, we want to try and get a good understanding of where it's coming from and what's going on. And so, let's look. So basically, you're in communication with Neil Pert, and you were at the peak of your life in your martial arts, physically, mentally, spiritually, psychically. And they decided to use this technology on you, right? Mm-hmm. And then by them using this technology, that means that they were communicating with you through this advanced technology, through your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was actually taking notes, and what's really interesting is that they put an album out called Snakes and Arrows, and at the time that I was being inducted live feed real time, we were communicating certain data, and that data showed up on the album, and actually when they say brought to you by Conniption, that was actually relayed, that was live feed real time, that was our communication. So there were things that were happening that I was interconnected live feed real time with them in their arena. And I was taken along for a ride. I didn't have to physically get out in my car and go drive to Canada or California, but I was literally inducted into this communication system and with them as they toured.
So how did you feel about this? I mean, did they ask your permission? Did they say,
no,
would you mind? So they just forced the system on you?
Absolutely. The sad thing about this whole thing is that it was traumatic. What happened to me was that I wasn't communicating verbally with my husband. I was so inducted into the program with the synthetic telepathy that I was handled so rough with the communication system, with psychotronics, with real-time live feed programming that I wasn't even verbally talking. And even my stepdaughter noticed it. She was wondering what had happened to me. My husband at the time thought I was on drugs. He said, and I don't take drugs, I don't even drink. And he said that he thought that my doctor had put me on something and it was giving me some kind of a reaction because I'm calling your doctor, there's something wrong here. And literally we weren't having any communication. And within 4 months' time, we were divorced. And literally I was swept away and relocated onto Maui where they told me to go, actually. He said, go to a place of your choosing where I can get to you. And Maui was the selected choice. And then, of course, my handler, Michael J. Mossbach, showed up at that point.
But why why should you do what they want?
You know, I was driven to do it. I didn't want to go. I was traumatized. I was in such duress and such trauma in my house that I felt like I had to get out of my house to have peace of mind. And of course that didn't work. I wasn't really in control of my body. I can tell you I was signing off on stuff that wasn't, I can't believe some of the stuff I signed off on. I gave things away I should have never given away. My marriage, I would have never gotten divorced. We loved each other. We were soulmates. Literally that was something that should have never happened. And the weird thing is, when I went to my lawyer and he's going, I want you to sign this waiver because I don't want to get sued. He goes, you're not making rational decisions. And I knew that because the whole time Michael and my handler, well, who is Michael actually, and the other communication system were so bombarding me that I couldn't even make a rational decision. Excuse me. So I had to literally, I signed off on stuff. I did things in alignment with my handler. I was completely shoved and pushed around by the program and traumatized by it. This is the type of thing that will take your vitals out. It will force you to hear and see things. Not to mention the live feed real-time handler, but it will show you things, and it will, I couldn't stare or look at something without them trying to label everything for me. They would finish my sentences, they would start my sentences, then the live handler would interrupt and start a whole new program and try to program me into something else. And if I didn't comply, they would attack me with the psychotronic weapons. One time they took me to the floor with this weapon system. Now, this is something that's happening across the globe. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but what happened to me was inexcusable and what I considered a war crime, to be quite honest with you.
Well, totally. And I'm just amazed that these people, as you say, I know you mentioned Neil Pert from Rush, and I'm sure there's other stars out there using this technology. What's in it for them? Why are they doing this to you or these people? Is it a control thing? Are they using you as a kind of a stool pigeon or as a person, as a slave, or why?
I think it's, for me, it was a test subject thing. I think they wanted to run me through, it was a test pilot thing. They were running me through programs, but the thing is, I was making it work better than someone else would have because I'm a natural telepath. So I know the difference between true telepathy versus something that's interfaced with artificial intelligence. So when they wired me in, it was like all they did was enhance what I normally have. And they were enjoying the fact that I could communicate live feed real time with my handler. I knew that. They were really digging the fact that I was running really quick with this data and I was able to communicate back and forth live feed. When you think about it, it's a miracle to do it. It's really cool. But at the same time, it's abusive, it's about control and manipulation, it's about brainwashing, it's about changing somebody's identity. And I think for them it was just, I think they wanted to run me through some programs. I think they wanted to show me what he was doing. At one point he even told me, he said, I'm bringing you in my world. And then he told me again, he said, you're going to hate me for this. And actually, I really feel like I did because I was like, this is a horrific thing to do to somebody. It's one thing to knock on somebody's door and say, look, we have this technology, you want to help, you want to try it out and see how it works. But to just pull somebody in, take their family away, just ruin their lives and then try to pretend it doesn't exist. And of course, I had to testify in court against it in 2006 and they just kind of just walked it off,
Well, yeah, how can you prove it in court?
Well, the funny thing is, the only thing I can prove is the facts of the matter is, my handler did tell me the truth when I met with him in person, and then he denied it in the courtroom. And he was the one that suggested that I actually talk to a magistrate. When we met in person, he goes, well, how would you like to talk to a magistrate about all this stuff? And I said, sure. I said, but I need somebody in my corner. And he goes, don't worry, I'll be there. Well, he was there to stab me in the back, literally, because when I started talking about the technology itself, first of all, it was over the judge's head, or the magistrate's, and secondly, this was a paid off situation before I even walked into the courtroom. I was done. I shouldn't have never even bothered with it because literally the system's bought and sold by the highest bidder, and we all know that people who are in that industry have control over a lot of these people and, judges, juries, you name it. So it really was kind of falling on deaf ears. Okay, and what happened to the court case? Well, the court case, the judge dismissed it. Basically, he just kind of threw it out, and I had a really good lawyer in my pocket too. He's ex-NSA Signals Intelligence, so we knew what was going on. And at one point, my lawyer told me, he did want to go after them. He knows the technology, and he told me point blank. He said, "This stuff is so black and so deep, it's just we can't do it." He just told me point blank. You're dealing with things that are so beyond classified, that are so not talked about, that are so, it's a militarized weapon system that's being deployed on anyone or anything. And when you come forward and try to disclose this technology, they try to shut you down. And if they don't shut you down, they'll try to discredit you. And if they can't discredit you, they'll take you out. What saved me was I put a video out in 2006, a testimony, after I was released from the court, and literally told exactly what had happened so that I could basically protect my rights in case I was to disappear. And that was suggested by two friends of mine. And I am trying to slow down, believe me, but it's very hard to do in verbiage because keep in mind, yes, I talk fast, but I have been interfaced with a very quick artificial intelligence communication system, and that signal anomaly is not gone. Okay.
It's
so,
and how come the likes of Neil Pert and other people like that can get access to this technology? I mean, is he part of a clique or a group or some kind of syndicate, or do you know anything about his background and how he got involved in this?
I saw more than I needed to when I looked into him, when I was interconnected with their energy and his psyche and Michael's psyche, because Michael's interconnected with Neil's head. So literally it's like a boomerang effect. You get through different barriers and different firewalls of people's personas and energy fields. And the one thing that I saw was that he was definitely involved in these communication system as covert assessment technology, and that he's been involved in signals intelligence communication system for a very long time. He's actually a very brilliant person. He used to be. He used to be extremely intelligent. I don't know if he's the same person anymore. I get the feeling he's not. I feel like he's so compromised with the psychotronic weapons that he's just not him anymore. I mean, yeah, if you listen to people, they'll say, oh, he drums like a machine. Yeah, he does, doesn't he? And I wonder why, right? Because he's interconnected with the communication system. That's why. So I can answer that one.
So do you think that he's been manipulated by this technology as well?
Absolutely, he is. And I knew that his family, and I don't want to get too hardcore into it, but his previous family that was taken out was also interconnected into the program, and I'm pretty sure, 99.9% sure, that the reason that they're no longer alive is because of that program. So, it almost took me out. It almost killed me.
Okay, and what about the likes of the rest of the members of the band? Would they be involved in this, no?
Yes, they are involved. Geddy Lee's involved and Alex Lyson as well. As a matter of fact, when I was inducted, all three of them were there, live feed, real time, and they were involved. And when I had Michael J. Mosbach, my handler, show up in Colorado for the second time before I went into the courtroom, he had Geddy Lee's family member with him. So, I mean, you piece it all together, and I know this sounds really out there for a lot of people, and I understand that, because if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't have believed any of it. But I'll tell you, there are people, money buys a lot of things, and when you're that high profile, you can access a lot of technology that most people can't get their hands on. And it can be deployed, and if somebody comes forward, they'll say, oh, they'll just try to discredit them in some way.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. Not only is it... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and where does that sit with the likes of people who are targeted in the individuals?
Well, and so far as that goes, I mean, where they have it, they're getting hit with a similar technology. I can't say which one it is, but I've been doing a lot of research, and I've talked to a lot of targeted individuals. Now, I had somebody that came to me back in 2005 who was a Montauk boy, and he was a mess. I mean, literally, that guy was loaded with technology, loaded, and he was forced into suicide because of the dialogue. The duress of the communication system was so harsh on him, he couldn't take it, and he killed himself. Now, that's a forced suicide, just to give you an example. Now, there are other people who are getting hit, where they call targeted individuals. Sometimes they'll say it's a scalar wave. Sometimes they'll say it's a microwave. I'm not buying it. If you talk to Richard Allen Miller, who was just a guest on my show, he really, he was involved in the original mind control, or some original mind control, not all of it. But he'll talk about the microwaves and how detrimental they are, and that's what's causing all the voice to skull. Well, BS. I'm not buying that, because back then in the 70s, that's changed. Nowadays, it's a high-tech, black-budget, very advanced artificial intelligence program that's deployed through satellites. And I'm telling you, it's hardcore, and it doesn't, microwaves are nothing compared to what this thing can do. Nothing.
Incredible. Steve, you have a few questions for Solaris.
Yeah. Jesus, this is... it's good information. There's a lot of activity on the chat room, Solaris. A couple of questions. Going to kick off with one from Jerry. Jerry is wondering how, with synthetic telepathy, is the communication turned off, and how does Solaris deal with the total loss of privacy?
Well, the sad thing is you get calibrated for the loss of privacy. I mean, literally they're everywhere, so you don't have privacy anymore, and you just get calibrated for it, and you get numb to it. You get just desensitized. I think the other question, you said you can't switch it off. Excuse me, the anomaly signals that I have things that are embedded in my neural circuitry that have been measured by Steve Colburn, and these things do not disable. I've tried to disable them myself on different levels, and they just can't be done. As far as I can tell, I'm not convinced that I can't disable them, but right now they're not able to be disabled. And this is what we're going on 10 years plus right now. So that's what I've been dealing with. So what I have done is I rewrote the program. I became the meta-programmer. Everything they tried to throw at me, I negated. Every visual, I negated. Everything they tried to do to me, I deprogram it. I would basically override and slap down the handler, take down the controller, go after the remote sensors. I would literally just combat it, and that's what happened. I mean, I just got so strong that I broke through those barriers, and now there's me, who is, I'm here, and then there's an artificial anomaly that's attached to me like a parasitic host, or well, I guess I'm the host, but it's a parasite to me. And that's literally what's been hanging out with me since 2004. So I haven't been able to disable that at all.
Jeez, that's crazy.
It's madness, isn't it?
And you don't hear about this on mainstream now, do you? But you'll see movies in Hollywood about all sorts of cool little, like, transhumanism stuff, right? Everybody's making a fast buck about transhumanism, but they're not talking about the seriousness and the epidemic proportions of people getting targeted and harassed or inducted into these covert programs. And a lot of that's MyLab. Of course, we know about the MyLabs. So, I mean, they start pulling you into these programs and they want to use you for something. And they, like I said before, they tried to change my name. And I said, no, that's not my name. I went through an interrogation like you wouldn't believe when I was first hit with this program. I mean, these guys were trying to change me big time. It's amazing.
I was just thinking, I mean, a lot of what you're describing, I mean, I've seen, I'm sure everyone has seen the old Star Trek all the way up to the new, the new Star Trek, and even if you were to tell this information, I reckon, to someone on the Starship Enterprise, it would even sound very far-fetched for them. I mean, this sounds like way, way beyond anyone's wildest imagination.
Mm-hmm. Well, it really does, but when you look at the black budget programs, I mean, they're at least 100 years advanced beyond where regular mainstream technology is. And if you follow DARPA, I mean, DARPA is right there on the tail. They're riding the tails of a lot of the black budget technology. I mean, they're actually coming forward slowly, spoon-feeding people about artificial intelligence and brain chips and this and that. So you can see where it's heading. Yeah. I can see where it's heading. But what they're trying to do with it is weaponize it. They're weaponizing it through people. And that's the problem. They're turning everybody into, or they want to turn everybody into some kind of I mean, it can be anything from a Manchurian candidate to, I don't even want to say it's a super soldier, because to me it just seems like they're just trying to derail the path of one's spiritual, lifestyle.
And of course, the people that are selected, we have TIs that contact us. And as you said before the show, we were talking about this. And it could be the blood group, it could be their spirituality, they could be very good psychics. They could be their genes, their DNA, or it could be just because they're an activist and they get put on a list to be targeted.
Right, all of the above, I would say, just about. Yeah, anytime somebody has an issue with you, and they're high profile, you can count on yourself being gang stalked in some way, or I would say. And I think a lot of people do get gang stalked, without a doubt. Yeah, but they are looking for psychics, and they do check. Bloodlines have a lot to do with it, and the reason that is because the bloodlines come down through what I call celestial heritage, and when you have those royal bloodlines, a spiritually royal bloodline, then you have more avatar abilities naturally. And what they want to do with those abilities is enhance them, and they do that by mapping your electromagnetic field, mapping your brainwave activity, your neural circuitry, your psychic ability, and interfacing it onto a communication system in an underground area, which is usually based on artificial intelligence and a supercomputer. And that's what they're doing. And they're taking these brain templates and they're storing the data, and they're using it later on maybe to clone somebody. That's a high possibility as well. I mean, a lot of these people who have been inducted have clones, from what I understand.
And basically, I think last week we had Miles on, and we were talking about the blood groups, and I think rhesus negative.
RH negative, yeah. Yeah,
RH negative was one of the blood groups they're looking for, along with other, as I say, other issues people being, excuse me, I have it, as you know, sore throat, with being targeted because of either they're an activist, psychic abilities. I mean, we've had a few TIs on, and although this kind of synthetic telepathy is a bit different, the principle is the same, is that you're actually being targeted without, whether you know about it or not. And some people are targeted, and because they don't know anything about this information at all, they just think they're losing the plot.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem, yep. Yeah. And so when you talk about this handler, why do you call him a handler? I mean, who made him your handler? Who gave him permission to be your handle?
Neil hired him.
Neil. And Neil said that this man is the man to actually control you and manipulate your life and everything else.
Oh, absolutely. He was the middleman. He was the one right there running the show and working the programs and everything else. So, I mean, I trusted him, to be honest. I trusted him to help me resolve everything that was happening to me. I was in a great deal of trauma, and what he did was turn his back on me and stab me in the courtroom with a virtual knife, literally. So, yeah, I mean, it's really sad when I look back at this whole thing. It was never really resolved. I mean, what I did was I took the research and the technology and I put it into a documentary called I, the Remote, A Disclosure of Covert Technology. And then that's a DVD, and then I have some books out on covert technology, as you have mentioned. And that's pretty much where I stand with it. I still do the research, I never give up. I'm always looking for alternatives on a higher level of consciousness to to scramble what they're doing to harm people, because a lot of these developers will sit there with a smirk on their face and they'll say, well, we can use it for like better eyesight and this and that. And I'm thinking, you have no idea how you're traumatizing the spirit. You people have no respect for the soul that occupies the vessel, and they trample all over people without asking permission. Yeah. So I really do have a problem with that.
Yeah, no, big time, big time. It's like being, well, they call it silent rape, don't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it's soul torturing as well. I mean, you're dealing with so many different things, and that's another thing. They would surge your sexual centers out. They did that with me, try to like sexually surge me out, and then they would try to like have me react to somebody in public like I liked them when I know I didn't. That's the program. And when you look at all that stuff, that's how they make these Manchurian candidates. That's how they make monarchs and things like that. And of course, I broke with those programs. It didn't work for me. None of those things could work on me. So I literally just kept overriding it and fighting it, and I got through it, but it wasn't easy.
I'll tell you one thing. That just reminded me when you were talking about that, about the control. MK Ultra came to mind, and trying to get you to do things, because I mean that's what the MK Ultra is all about anyway. I mean, they talk about Mark Chapman being an MK Ultra stool pigeon who killed John Lennon, and part of his programming was obviously to do that, and I'm sure there's various other people who have been controlled and manipulated to do it, and that's what's scary.
Right, well, look at the shooters, yeah.
Yeah, the shooters. I mean, they program you to go off and do something which you would never do.
Mm-hmm. They push you.
Yeah.
What they call it passive harassment. And what they'll do is they'll psychotronically or telepathically or whatever hardware they're using on you, whatever tactical hardware, they'll push you and push you and push you. They'll use dialogue, they'll use a handler, they'll use visuals. And if you don't, and basically what they're doing is trying to get a violent response from you. They want you to respond in violence, act out, hurt somebody, hurt yourself. That's the whole thing. And they're deploying this on everybody. You've seen the shooting, that guy in the shooter's yard, or I forget his name now, but I mean, literally he was being stalked and psychotronically programmed to do those things. So, and then they turn around and they pretend like it's so, oh, well, we can't imagine why they do these things. Well, I know exactly what they're doing. I know the hardware. And when they call it threat assessment technology, this is what cracks me up. They'll try to do a threat assessment on somebody in covert departments, right? And they'll take a test subject and they'll run them through psychotronics and they'll run them through this abusive program. And then if the person responds as non-compliant, they'll call them a threat. Right. It's insane.
And why would they respond as non-compliant?
Well, basically, they're not going to comply with the program that they're being hit with. So say I didn't respond, so I'm a class level 3 threat, according to Michael.
Right, okay.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't respond to the program. I wasn't going to let them push me into doing something reckless or destructive to anyone or myself. Therefore, I'm a threat because I'm not complying with what they want me to do.
And how did you control that? How did you do that?
I pushed them back. I pushed them back psychically. I pushed them back telepathically. I am a martial artist, and I thank goodness I'm a black belt, because I think that had a lot to do with my chi energy and the fact that I was able to fight them on a higher level of consciousness. So I literally just rejected them. I rejected the program. I would write affirmations down. I would write everything they tried to say. I would negate it and rewrite the entire, verbiage in alignment with spirit. I really just removed that component out of my life. I still get hit with programs because I'm always interconnected, but they know they can't touch me anymore. I mean, they realize that all they can do now is torture me if they want to remotely. And I'm actually at that level where I think that I'm just way beyond a lot of what they try to do to take me down. I mean, that's just the way I've been working. Lately, it's been much easier to move through the technology.
Well, I think that's the important bit, to have the actual energy. And maybe have a support group. I mean, over here in Ireland, there are people over here who are TIs. And I'm sure there's thousands of them, but some people don't realise they're actually TIs. And maybe they think it's something else. Or maybe they just feel that they're losing the plot. And I do think if there was a support group together for TIs over here to help each other, and I mean the people like yourself who might be suffering from synthetic telepathy, then at least a group together can support them, and maybe as a group with the energy of the group, whether it's psychic or otherwise, be part of the group to try and help the person get through this. And maybe that's something that needs to be looked at globally.
Yeah, I agree with that.
For these people, groups of people to get together to fight this and use their the psychic abilities of a group to actually fight this and send it back to
I believe they can. I really do. And the funny thing is, the support groups, the problem you have with inductees, abductees, contactees, or my lab people is that sometimes when they're all in the same group, they get triggered by each other not because there's anything wrong with any one of them at the spiritual level. It's because they've been programmed to be triggered. So you're dealing with people who will have conflict because they're programmed to have conflict, not because that they're choosing that. And I'm not saying that they would have that in a TI situation, but it's possible. What I've looked at and what I'm focusing on is deactivating these programs. And I'm looking at deactivating the technology, and I know that's really harsh to the people who are developing this stuff. But I'll tell you what, I don't care what they do with technology, but I'm not going to sit here and be victimized by it. And people have been suffering. People have been murdered by these programs. People have lost their families, their careers. Real professional people that are, you're talking good people who are intelligent, who are losing their lives. I mean, this is foolishness. And yet there's just a smirk on the face of these global cabals that absolutely take no responsibility. Well, that's what needs to change. The support groups are a start, but I'll tell you what we really need to do is go after the beast with the tentacles and start cutting these tentacles off. That's the bottom line.
Definitely will. I think the support groups are probably the start. Now tell me something. Is it possible that, and I'm sure it is, that somebody could be, unknowns to them if they're in a group, being manipulated to do various things or to start won't say a negative thing, but to upset the group by saying things or upset somebody in the group by saying things that they could be controlled and not be aware that they're being controlled?
Oh, absolutely. And then a lot of the programming is subliminal. I mean, it's not all telepathic and it's not all psychotronic. I mean, sometimes people get hit through frequency, and that frequency could have a signature that's encrypted that's actually a communication. So they'll be subliminally saying things and also keywords and triggers, which can also trigger other people. So, yeah, sometimes people are just hosts for information that they don't even realize what they're doing half the time. And then, of course, we get the plants, which are deliberate saboteurs that show up, and I've seen those before.
Yeah, well, so, that's where I was leading to, because time and time again, you hear about groups getting together for the good of doing something, and then you get your infiltrators and your trolls and everything else. And these people, either knowingly or unknowingly, can kind of cause a problem. And you hear that the group has split up because of this one person or two people in the group or whatever. And right. I'm just wondering, is this part and parcel of the way to break up groups so people don't get together?
Absolutely, yeah, divide and conquer without a doubt. They want people isolated, removed from family, removed from their belief system so that they can control, manipulate, and program them. Absolutely. That goes for children, too, and that's what's so sad. They look for any reason to take a child away nowadays.
Well, yeah, we know that. I mean, over in the UK with Brian Garish, Brian did say that the social workers in the UK actually get paid a bonus for removing children from families.
Jeez, yeah.
Which is something else. Steve, you have something there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I'd seen you putting your hand up.
Sir, question, sir. Sir, can I go? No, I was just stretching my neck. I do have more questions, but I was just kind of stretching my neck there. I do have a little bit of a creak in my neck. I have a couple of questions. Solaris To.I was just wondering, your blood group, I think, is O rhesus negative is To.I's blood group. She's just wondering, are you of the same blood group?
No, I'm actually a B positive, which is a rare blood type. But I will tell you this, on my mother's side of the family, we have, my sister's done our lineage, and it's all royalty, on Scottish royalty, and Irish kings and French. Yeah, there's a lot of royal legacy in there.
Okay, we'll just refer to you as Ma'am.
Okay, well, that's fine. SBR is fine.
Yes, Jerry's also wondering, Jerry says the penny has dropped with him, and based on the technology that you're speaking of, he says he wonders, is this how spies have been communicating? He also wants to know, how long does Solaris believe synthetic telepathy has been used? He's wondering, how old is this technology?
Right. What's interesting is he's correct about the spy bird thing. Yeah, it's used for your ultimate spy, because it can't be tracked, and nobody will know they're plugged in, and then they'll have a live handler in real-time communication with synthetic telepathy, and they're dangerous to any facility because they're already infiltrating, right? But yeah, insofar as the synthetic telepathy goes, what's really interesting, if you want to go back to mysticism and spiritual alchemy and even Atlantis, I mean, they were naturally telepathic then. And I believe we're all naturally telepathic, and what happens with this technology is that it enhances it. It's my take that they've really, really revamped this stuff. Probably, I would say the breakthroughs came probably around my induction. I know they had a form of synthetic telepathy earlier than that, but it wasn't anything like what I went through. So my take is that they've been able to really enhance this technology, and I think it's really fine-tuned now.
Yeah, and you did say earlier on that you reckon that some of this technology could be 100 years ahead of Ant-Man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the black budget, black space program technology, that's what's so interesting. I mean, we have technology that there's nothing that we can't cure. What's really sad is that everything on this world can be taken care of with the technology that we really do have and have mastered, but only a few have access to. And I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, look at Tesla's work. I always bring Tesla up because, I mean, had we reversed that and put it in direction of free energy in a positive way, everything would have been really efficient here on this world. Let's put it that way, and very spiritual.
You know yourself, it was all down to the money, J.P. Morgan and everything else. With the Tesla technology, and even Tesla knew at the time when he passed on his knowledge to another chap, his what do you call him? Protege. When he passed on the information, excuse me, I'm dying here. When he passed on the information to his protege, he said, my generations they're not ready for it yet. Maybe your generation will. And, Ralph Ring actually talks about this, the guy who was designing, aircrafts, alien crafts, what does it call them? UFOs, if you want to call them that, in the 50s. And he
yeah. Well, I was going to say, even precursor to World War II, I mean, you had everybody, look at the Nazis, they were working on man-made UFOs, and they were very successful with those UFOs. I mean, you have a lot of people who, I still look at the Billy Meyer case, like I think that was a military case. I don't think it was real off-world technology. I think that was a real nice version of German technology.
That's right.
Some of the craft.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as you say, in World War, people sometimes say, well, don't believe that, but check out Peenemünde. Peenemünde was the secret underground base where Von Braun was, and they were designing UFOs. They were designing UFO-shaped crafts, and they were using a process called the Coanda effect, which sucks the air from the top and blows it out down the bottom. That's one of the technologies they used. But, I mean, we know Hitler was into the occult anyway, and he was in communication with certain beings from outside this world. And I seen an article the other day saying the FBI, I think, or the NSA, have now released papers saying that, Hitler did go to Argentina, which we all knew about anyway.
Right.
And he lived over there, and he died. Apparently, some people are saying he's still alive, whether because they're using this advanced technology, other people saying he died in the 90s. But it's amazing that, so many people are being targeted and affected by this, and there's no comeback for these people as of yet.
I agree.
And where do you see the world going? Where do you see what's happening? Because I know you run your own radio show, obviously, freedomslips.com. And we'll get
I don't own it, but I'm on Ravenstar Switching Hour. Yeah, that's my show. That's
right, and we'll get all your details at the end of the show. You can give them all out on your DVD and everything else. But with all the interviews that you've done with guests and the technology and what you've came across, where do you think we're going at the moment from a planetary point of view?
Well, right now it looks to me like transhumanism. It looks like they're terraforming the Earth. It looks like they're modifying things on this planet with no respect to the natural energetic associated with universal harmonics on the world. So what I'm seeing is a technological overlay based on man's, his intent is to abuse and misuse technology, control and manipulate the masses, condition them into being victimized by the technology, and also, enslavement, literally. And a lot of the things, there are frequency fences associated with this technology, which will stop the evolution or the ascension of somebody's spirituality if it gets out of control. So you're dealing with frequency fences also. And the sad thing about this interface with the synthetic telepathy and the psychotronics is that once the brain template is established, what they can do is take that template, like say you're transferring out, and you're loaded up with anomaly signals or signatures, they'll take your essence and try to stop it from ascending, your spiritual design, which I know you can't do. I mean, I have more faith in that. I think that we're much more powerful than the man's version of technology. However, they won't stop trying. These people are insane. They're they're just psychos. I mean, if you ask me, I think there's really something wrong with them. But that's what I see happening. I mean, I think we need to take this thing by the helm, and we need to stand up and get it disconnected, disabled. We need to stop this madness, because the majority of crimes committed today are based on some form of psychotronic deployment of brainwashing, mind control, or manipulation. I can guarantee that.
And of course, what they're trying to do now is they're trying to have Wi-Fi satellites around the Earth, so you can get Wi-Fi no matter where you are on the planet. Mm-hmm. And we're always giving out about Wi-Fi and about the whole idea. We've obviously interviewed Barry Trower, who's been on our show, about the dangers of anything over 300 megahertz is dangerous, is microwave. And we're trying to obviously get that out there to people and wake people up regarding Wi-Fi, mobile phones, baby alarms. Anything that's over 300 megahertz is dangerous, and we're trying to get it out there. And obviously what they've done over here in Ireland is they've got 850 million for the 4G network, which they're rolling out. And obviously one of the towns local to us had a debate there a few weeks ago saying, will they have this town available, having Wi-Fi available throughout the town. So anywhere you go, you can get access to Wi-Fi. And, I mean, that's what's happening. That's how bad it's getting.
It is really bad. It's just like consuming everything around it. It's like this big black hole, if you ask me. But, it's interesting because, energy is free energy. It's everywhere. Just like Tesla said, you could pull it right out of the air. A lot of energy. So you can use it in a positive way, or you can use it in a negative way. Unfortunately, this is being used and misused in a negative way. And I don't see a good outcome for this. I think it needs to be under control. And right now, this is becoming a dark world. It's becoming a dark planet. Look at the chemtrails. We hardly see the sun anymore. And they can say, oh, it's for this and that. I'm not buying it.
Exactly. I think we talked about Miles. We talked to Miles about this as well last week about, yes, the chemtrails and the kind of silvery kind of lining that we're seeing now in the sky. Gone are the days where you see a lovely blue sky with some clouds. It's always misty. It's always, there's always something up there that's blocking the sun in some way,
Yeah.
And you get some days of no chemtrails and other days, and we think, oh, maybe that's a good sign they've stopped doing it. And then before you know it, they're back again. And I don't know, there's a lot of disinformation out there, Solaris, as you probably know, you've come across. And I'm not too sure, and there's a number of people who talk about certain things. And they're saying that, the powers that be, or maybe sometimes they call them the powers that war, that their back is against the wall and they're struggling and everything else. Where do you see, the powers that be? Where do you see what's happening?
Well, I think that they were surprised that a lot of people are coming forward. I think they were surprised when people started fighting back. I think that took them off guard a little bit. Right now, I think we have a battle ahead of us and that we need to take the helm. But I also think we have enough really powerful psychics and really powerful spiritual people. You don't even have to be like a psychic. You can be just a powerfully, just a powerful spiritual person and be able to negate this evil that's been spread across the planet. So I believe, I'm always hopeful about things. I'm an optimist when it comes down to that. So I think, and I always trust the universe, that through all this weirdness that we're experiencing right now, that everything's going to be okay in the end. But right now, it's like hell on earth.
Right, well, it is definitely hell on earth, and as Miles says, this is the worst time the planet has been gone through and the people on earth has gone through. This is such a dark period in man's history with everything that's gone on. And, maybe there are things that are happening. Maybe, there is a thing called Planet X or Nibiru, which is happening that we're not being told about. Apparently, more and more evidence is coming about showing a second planet. And so much information out there now regarding it. And there's experts who are in the scientific field coming out and actually saying that there is. Now, again, I'd say to people, always do the research and check it out. And don't believe what we say. You don't have to believe what we say, but entertain the thought anyway and check into it. You do your own research. Steve, you got a couple of questions there?
Yeah, I still have some more questions. I just want to make my own observation on Wi-Fi. As we said there a couple of weeks ago, that Wi-Fi has been rolled out and it's an integrated part of society. As far as I'm concerned, it's the thorn in the side of society, because since its inception, I think it's turned people into zombies, especially the mobile phones. I think they're turning people into zombies. That's just my own personal opinion. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it in the place where I work. I've witnessed it with family members as well. And I think that's going to be that the Wi-Fi signal, or if you want to call it signal, I reckon that's going to be an intricate part of the control, especially if this thing is going to be launched from satellites. It's going to be watching us 24/7. Especially if they get this thing, as you say, Alan, the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi surrounding the Earth. It'll be free, yeah, and people will embrace it like they do. But it's the more sinister uses that would concern me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to give my thoughts on that, because Jerry also mentions. Jerry has a lot of good questions. Solaris, he said that you stated earlier that this control, it's done via AI, via satellites, and he was wondering, can you expand on this statement and kind of why are you certain that this is the case?
Well, satellite-driven technology, they have black satellites. They're not regular satellites, but they have black satellite technology that literally, it's a lot easier to deploy an assessment weapon covert tactical hardware onto a target through the satellite-driven technology, because you can zoom in really easily. I mean, there's so many different levels to the technology, but what they're doing is they're mapping you from remote distance, and they do that through the satellite system. And then they tag you and interface you onto the communication system, which is based on artificial intelligence. So that's as good as it gets with elaboration on that. But I do a lot of research with this technology, and I've looked at all different avenues, and I'm not saying that they can't deploy it through microwaves and this and that, like cell phone towers, but it's not the same. It's not the same one, and there are different programs. And this one, there's some real high-tech designed technology out there that would just blow you out of the water, and this happens to be one of them. And the more information I get, the more I start exposing it. But the good side of what I've been doing is I've been interviewing a lot of scientists. I've been interviewing people who have been involved in creating some of this technology. And the people that I know that have been involved in this worked on it years and decades ago, which means it's outdated beyond the word. So I just keep taking information, and I know what happened to me, so I use that as a benchmark, and then I incorporate other pieces of technology that I know are outdated, like dinosaurs. So we're dealing with a high-tech technology that's satellite-driven for sure. I know it's satellite-driven, without a doubt.
I'm guessing that this could happen to anybody. I mean, I'm not saying that Alan or I are of royal bloodlines or anything like that, but just without our consent.
For yourself.
Well, okay, Sir Alan of yeah, whatever. So basically, this technology could be used, and it could happen to me. See, I always thought that you would have to be kind of taken somewhere and have something implanted in you. But the message I'm getting from what you're saying is that your aura or your being, if you like, can be mapped and just put onto a system without you ever knowing about it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right, and the thing is, if you meditate a lot, or if you enhance your vibration, if you're very spiritual, and a lot of people do amp up their what I call Merkaba signal, then they'll be able to track that and measure it. It stands out like a sore thumb. So they'll be able to see that, and then they'll map it, and you'll become a candidate. That's one of the reasons, if you're enhanced psychically, they look towards those things. Yeah, if you have an energy field, if the body's electrical, it's a conductor, it's a superconductor, so it's easy to tag it with a communication system. Anybody can get hit with this program. It just depends on if they want to pull you in or not, or if you're the candidate they're looking for. And I believe that at some point in the continuum, every single person will be hit with a program and be inducted into a program. It may not be the same one, but I believe that they're all going to be assimilated if we don't get a grip on this. And if you look at that movie, THX 1138, that really rings true. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not.
No, haven't heard it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, check it out. Well, it's literally about people who live in an underground that are completely brainwashed and conditioned, and through violence, programming, their mates are selected. They're forced to watch television all the time. And what he was relaying, this was George Lucas's first movie, but literally, they show you a television in the film, but at the same time, it's the psychotronic program is the television. Now, you don't need a television anymore. They're forcing you to see things through the psychotronic deployment that you can't shut off. I mean, unless you close your eyes, and even then you'll see like a burn, an after image. They do some horrific stuff, and I'll tell you, you can't tell me that this isn't damaging and scarring the brain, because I know it is.
Right, okay. No, I totally agree with you. I think it's going to have a long-term effect. We have a question from Ohm on People's Internet Radio, and he just said, I think you answered this earlier on anyway. He was just interested to know why the guest thinks they would bother to target her, especially, and for what for. But as we all said, it could be down to your psychic abilities, your blood, and for a number of reasons.
Well, I mean, obviously, I had communication with him in the past, so I think that was one thing. He knew who I was. And he, I get the feeling that they wanted to see where I was at on a spiritual level, too. But to me, it seemed like they were almost bored. I hate to say this, but it seems to me like they were looking for a thrill. And they decided to just go ahead and induct me into the program. And then they started running me through tactical hardware and hardcore stuff. Everybody always asks me that question, but what's really cute is when my handler showed up, Michael J. Mosbach, and he sat there and stared me right in the eye and said, "Why you?" And what's funny is, right before I had to go testify against him in the courtroom, he looked at me and said, "I'm in your head." Now, this guy confirmed the technology, okay? This isn't a game. I understand that they're high-profile people. I understand they're famous, and I understand how much people love rock stars. I totally get that. But these guys have access to the technology, and they are using the technology. And I was hoping that they would have come forward in support of me, and we all would have gotten together and said, look, this is what's happening, and it's a global epidemic. But it didn't happen that way, because people are bought and sold, and I understand that people's families get jeopardized. I get that. So I understand why Michael couldn't be a voice. I had to be the voice.
Right, okay. And what about Neil? I mean, is he pressured to do this? Is he forced to do it by people?
I think he's completely manipulated personally. I don't think I think there's a really small portion of really what's him inside of him these days. He's a completely compromised unit is what I would call him. I think that he's more enhanced on so many different levels than he is as a person these days. And I know he's been controlled for a very long time. This is a guy who's been programmed into signals intelligence programs probably since he was a kid. So we're dealing with almost like I don't want to say a Montauk boy, but possibly Montauk. He's definitely, and he's brilliant too. The problem is when you're very intelligent, they go after you. If you have a brilliant mind, that's the first thing they're going to do is recruit you. They're going to try to get you into some kind of a program, and then they're going to manipulate the heck out of you to get you to do exactly what they want you to do.
Well, and the funny thing is, you talked just a few minutes earlier about meditation and people getting to meditation. And of course, what do a lot of spiritual people do? They meditate. Mm-hmm. So they're actually, putting a white flag up, really, by doing that, and then highlighting their ability by, going into meditation. Because if you go into deep meditation, it brings you to a different frequency, and that's the whole idea of meditation. So they're actually, making themselves known by doing that, which is a bit of a concern, really.
Oh, absolutely. That's the problem. They're measuring your life force, your chi, your universal life force energy. And of course, you're familiar with light body, which goes to so many levels on the ascension level, and then it goes into Merkaba. Yeah. So once you've reached certain levels of spirituality, when I had done a lot of work on myself, I was right at the Merkaba signal. And my signal that I used to amp up with my meditations is the signal that they tagged with their communication system. And that's the signal now that's encrypted that bounces to music on radio and interacts with elements outside. And, it's really, it's almost a disrespect and an insult to the spiritual design. And that's why I know it's not a microwave. This isn't a microwave that I have, this signal.
And what about the whole idea of being able to move? Now, this is another subject that's being kind of banded around. The ability they have using this technology to literally put your consciousness on a DVD and move it.
Well, I think they can take your brainwave activity and your conscious program,
not your soul,
and interface it, but not consciousness. I'm not seeing the consciousness at all. I don't believe they can take the soul essence and do that, but I do think they can take your conscious thoughts, things that have maybe some cellular memory, and try to interface it onto something like that. They're really kind of like Frankenstein. They'll do just about anything to experiment, and they are taking people's, I wouldn't even call them memories. I would just call them fractals of data, because when I was inducted, my mother had passed away I was inducted in April, and my mother passed away in June, and I remember them using her verbiage, her voice in pattern to communicate with me, to try to control and manipulate me, just like in the Terminator, because that same thing. They were taking her energetic, her signature, the way she communicated, her voice pattern, and using it as a weapon against me. And I will say this really quick. If you're looking at the NSA stuff across the globe and saying, why are they so interested in everybody? Nobody's life is that interesting. So there's a reason behind all this. There's a devious side to what they do. And that's storing data, storing voice patterns, so that you can later deploy those onto the masses to control and manipulate through psychotronic warfare. So keep that in mind. Every voice, message you leave, every verbiage, everything you say to somebody can be used as a weapon against you later on through psychotronic deployment in voice to skull, which I don't even call voice to skull anymore. It's a transmission, it's a communication, it's a mock radio signal.
Okay, and what about the likes of people that, say for example, somebody goes to see a spiritual medium, in all honesty, and the spiritual medium's there and they want to give a message to the person. What's the chances that all these people on the internet, not just the people who are spiritual mediums, but the likes of people who are doing trance and channeling and everything else, is there a possibility that these people are being controlled and the message that's being sent through is being controlled by these people?
Yeah, I get that too. I call it a band radio wave. So what they're doing is they're accessing different bands of frequency. We're bombarded by radio waves all the time. So these psychics can tune into that because we're natural antennas, right? So we can pick and choose whatever we want to do. And I believe there are natural psychics. I naturally tune in psychically. Before I was inducted, I could tune into anything through frequency. So I understand that. But I do think there are people that are listening to the wrong data, and they're listening to entities or maybe things that are associated with these communication systems that are just tricksters. And nowadays it's really sad because instead of an old-fashioned trickster like a spirit, you have a technical version of it. You have a electronic possession, which instead of the old-fashioned possessions, right?
That's right, and obviously, we always talk about things like the Tavistock Institute for controlling people and using technology to do that. So obviously this is a modern version using the technology to do it. So people think they're talking to their spirit guide or they're channeling some entity, and it turns out they're actually channeling some guy in an office somewhere else.
Right, it could be an agent somewhere, and that's where people need to wake up and smell the coffee, because that can be very dangerous to your future. And, just pay attention, be watchful, and I look at this electronic possession stuff because that's what it can be. It can display symptoms of possession because you're being taken over by something that's controlling and manipulating you. It's changing your vitals, it's changing your identity, it's talking through you in tongues that are based on a communication versus a spiritual, I don't even want to call it spiritual, but a demonic possession, say. So this is where the churches need to wake up also, because there's an electronic warfare going on right now that's attacking people, and it's making them display things that look like a possession that are not. So that's something that they need to pay attention to as well. I'm sure they might be up to speed,
Okay, let's throw it out there. Let's open it up a little bit. What about the likes of abductions, people being abducted? Would that be used? Would that be holographic technology or something that would be put in your mind thinking you're seeing things?
I think with the inductions, people are getting hit with psychotronic warfare. I think they're getting tagged, pulled in, and communicated with, and then they're being shown something like maybe it's an extraterrestrial experience, when in fact the whole time they're showing them that picture, they're actually programming them with a different dialogue and encryption of verbiage that doesn't have any association with what they experienced. So that's where they start slipping in, inserting false memories and programs and things that are not in association with the experience. So that's why I really tell a lot of abductees or contactees, be very clear on what you're experiencing. And then again, people go into hypnosis and then they get further into it, but you really have to trust the person that's doing the hypnosis. Otherwise, they're going to start triggering things all over the place.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's
so complex.
It's so complex.
It goes so deep and so dark. The whole thing.
Yeah, it's just a complete minefield, and where do you turn? I suppose I don't know. I think what you did to be able to fight it back and have the strength to do that. Now, as you say, it's a parasite and it's in your system. But if you can separate yourself out from that, and then kind of lock it away in whether it's mentally or physically, then obviously this is something that you need to teach people how to do it if they are being attacked.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what I'm working on, too. And I'm also going to be a presenter at the Super Soldier Summit coming up in May in Las Vegas. If anybody's out that way, come check it out. But that's what we're working on is solutions. I'm a firm believer that we can negate this technology and that we don't have to be victimized in any form. And I'm also a firm believer in synthetic telepathy in the sense that I think technology is wonderful when it's applied, appropriately, But when you're misusing it, it's not going to work like that. You can't just sit there and brainwash people or invade their homes and abduct them without their permission. This is inexcusable.
Definitely. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we have the technology for scanning, as we said before the show, for microchips. And we did the training with Lars and Jesse, but Lars and Jesse are now getting concerned that the technology is so small now that, the likes of the technology we have will not be able to pick it up. And we talked about it before the show about how to disable it. But it's very, very hard without hurting the person. You have to kind of knock out something on the actual chip rather than knock out the chip, because you could cause an awful lot of problems by doing that. So we have yet to come up with a solution to be able to do that, to do it safely.
I agree. Well, what I've done is kind of run it like a motherboard. I treat the tactical hardware like a motherboard, like an assault weapon, and I run it like a motherboard. And then so far as redirecting it and scrambling it, I think that's one of the ways to at least kind of back it off. But it definitely has to be disabled without a doubt. And I think the more it gets integrated into the neural circuitry, the more difficult it becomes, because you run the risk of causing brain damage or some kind of damage to the host or the test subject or whatever you want to call yourself when it comes down to it. But, this technology is very smart, and it can switch on and it can switch off. I've seen it happen. This stuff is good. It's an intelligent design. It's not just some kind of an inanimate object that just hangs out. This thing has been programmed and it understands. So you're dealing with a level of artificial intelligence that's pretty darn smart.
Well, that obviously goes across the board to say that the likes of leaders of countries, presidents, prime ministers, TDs, let's say TDs, Irish TDs, anybody could be controlled and manipulated, and especially if they're not aware of this technology, they'll just think it's themselves making the decisions.
Right, I agree. Well, I think that in order for you to be high profile, you have to be indoctrinated into this program or technology in some form or design. I really believe that across the globe. I don't think anybody can be in a position of power without being controlled. They have to have handlers. And you'll see that in Hollywood, too. You'll see that in the entertainment industry. These guys don't get to just be free. They have a handler or somebody controlling them. So it makes perfect sense to me. And then, of course, the synthetic telepathy with the communication system, that's the best way to use technology for surveillance. I mean, you can't ask for a better system than that. That's a clean system.
Well, we've heard about handlers in Hollywood, but for different reasons. For, sexual abuse and all that stuff, stars getting involved, and sports stars. We've had Ted Gunderson on the show, ex-FBI agent, excuse me, head of the FBI in Los Angeles. Excuse me. My throat is at me again. And he was telling us about, what's going on in Hollywood and people involved in certain things. Now, obviously, Bob Hope, apparently he's dead, and allegedly he was a handler for some people as well. And Cathy O'Brien, who's, she does the Transformation of America website, and she was a sex slave, and Gerald Ford was used, and he was abusing her and along with a lot of other people. And it's a lady who we want to get on the show and talk to about what went on in her life and what the methods she used. But, I mean, that was probably in the 70s and the 80s. Now the technology now is so far advanced that it's, for what they can do is unbelievable. And you talk about Stuart Studlow. Stuart has been on the show as well, the Montauk, and what he was involved and the control that he went through, and the programming and everything else. And it's just frightening to know that this is going on. And without a doubt. And, you can get hit with these programs without leaving your home. That's what's so weird about it. It's not like they'll go take you away in the middle of the night and put you in underground somewhere. I mean, they're literally doing this in your house and just taking down anybody around you through the communication system. So, and Stuart's been on my show too, and I have a lot of respect for him. He also works with targeted individuals, and he works with anybody who needs help. So if people are looking for some insight, I would suggest, I really like Stuart. I think he's got some good things to show people. Yeah, no, Stuart's a good guy. We actually met Stuart. He came over here in Ireland, and we actually interviewed him in Dublin Airport because he had to go on and do what he had to do. So we had about 15-20 minutes with Stuart. So you met him in the airport, myself and Steve, and we did a video. The actual video is actually on our YouTube channel. And Stuart's a good guy. We met up with him there. But it's just trying to help these people who are knowing. When people know their TIs and they know what's going on, that's half the battle to say, right, how can we help you and try and deal with it. But when people don't realise they're being controlled, and if you look, say, just for example, in America, in Ireland and the UK, in Ireland, we can't understand why our politicians, I'm not saying they're controlled, but we can't understand why our politicians have no empathy. So many things are going on in Ireland, that things are so bad, mass evictions, there's food banks opening up over here, there's children going to school with no food, they're hungry, and yet these politicians keep turning out this rhetoric about paying Europe and paying the bills and paying this, that and the other, not giving a monkeys about the Irish people. And, I mean, each country could be the same, whether it's the UK, whether it's Greece, Cyprus, Spain, we're all in the same boat. And yet the leaders keep doing what the people don't want them to do.
I so agree. And I think that has a lot to do with them being programmed. I think they're completely programmed and controlled and manipulated to a point where they don't have any empathy or compassion for their fellow man. You can't tell me they don't know this technology exists. There are patents everywhere. So if anybody even wants to dispute what I'm talking about, just go look at the patents, for crying out loud. They're everywhere. So, the technology's there. We all know that. All the cards are on the table right now. But getting these guys to fess up, it's kind of like getting them to fess up about UFO disclosure. They're not going to do it because there's too much that's classified. There's too much that they're using as a weaponization to harm, control, manipulate, and influence the masses. I think the majority of people are being really brainwashed into even supporting politicians, quite honestly. I think that's just part of the mind game. But you're right, everybody's suffering across the globe. I see it here in the United States. People are being hit with this covert technology, and then people are in poverty. We had a middle class. Well, that middle class has gone to poverty level now. Most people who are upper middle class and middle class in America are just going right down the sewer. And that has a lot to do with the negligence of the people who are in the illusion of power here in the United States.
And you guys are really getting hit. I know it's bad over here in Ireland, but I think there's the powers to be really have it in for you guys in the States, especially with the way the dollar is at the moment. And I'm not saying, Putin is going to be the nice guy to solve the problems out, because he's probably just half of the other faction of the New World Order, and he just wants things his way, and the other half want it their way. So they're probably as bad as each other in their own way. But the dollar's definitely going to get hit, and you guys are really going to, go down the pan by the look of things, unless something drastically changes very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to tell you, it's interesting because I think right now they're privatizing everything, which means, we have the most people in prison here in the United States, and I can guarantee you the majority of them are probably not even criminals. I mean, literally what they're doing is inducting people and deploying their own assessment system to control, manipulate the masses. I see the dollar going down the sewer too, and I think that what they've done is they've militarized this entire country to such an extent that it's becoming, so not compassionate. I mean, it's not the America I grew up in at all. I mean, I saw America very differently when I was a kid, and now I'm looking at all this stuff and the things that I've been through, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is happening, because it reminds me a little bit of Nazi Germany. And I'm like, I can't believe this stuff is being deployed right now on this timeline. But I also have hope and vision that it will change, but I don't think it's going to change overnight, and I think we're going to go through some dark tides here in the U.S. before it does.
Well, I think we're all going through dark times at the moment. And with the air changes taking place, I mean, forget about, certain people talking about planets like Nibiru and Planet X, but look at the actual air changes in itself. I mean, globally, things that have been going on in the planet that, we haven't really experienced. And that's going to be, there's a lot more going to be coming down airway, and a lot of people don't realize that affects, everything is affected. It's all a balance, whether it's the honeybees, to, the weather conditions and weather patterns destroying crops, and that affects the old food truck turning up at the local Walmart or the local Tesco's to drop food in. I mean, we can't, it's unsustainable the way things are at the moment, globally. I so agree. That food truck cannot just keep turning up every day and dropping in food. It's unsustainable. Something has to give somewhere, and something's going to happen. And unless we do something about it, it's, I don't know where really it's going to go, in all honesty. I mean, I know the powers that be are well aware that it's unsustainable, and they're obviously making their alternative plans, whether it's underground bases or maybe, bases somewhere else. But, I mean, what's your take on it? Where do you see it going?
Well, I see a breakaway society for sure, and I think that some of these guys in these, I don't want to call them anything, I want to call them the powers that be, but these people who have a lot of money that have been controlling and manipulating, I believe they do have a breakaway society, and I think that a lot of them have already planned on going off-world, if they're not there already. I mean, I'm not saying some of the people you're seeing from day to day, but a lot of people in these underground bases, I believe, are being deployed elsewhere, and I think that they will be eventually deployed off the Earth. That's my take anyway. And I think what it is that there's a lot of transhumanism here, and that they're deploying technology to kind of calibrate everybody to be into that whole scenario, to a point where we're constantly being consumed by GMOs and everything else, and we're losing touch with nature and consciousness and the beautiful harmonics of the universe. So my take is, I mean, people need to reset their internal compass in association with the universal heartbeat and pulse, opposed to man's version of what man wants to create. And we can create our own realities. I mean, we all know that we can manifest at will reality. But we need to really get these guys out of office. We've got to get rid of these people. We've got to get all of these criminals out of these illusions and positions of power is really what needs to happen. If it were me, I would have like ambassadors across the world. I would have like ambassadors of light, galactic ambassadors, whatever you want to call them. I would have something completely ascension consciousness oriented, opposed to what they're doing right now. Because you're right, kids are suffering and starving. This is ridiculous. There's no reason for anybody to have no food. I mean, there's no excuse for that here on this world. I mean, the universe is rich.
Well, it's all down to greed and information. Knowledge is power. Now, funny enough, they always say they use Hollywood to tell us what's going on. And one of the movies I thought was quite poignant, if things are going that way, is a movie called Elysium with Matt Damon and Jodie Foster, where the rich people are living off planet on their spaceships, and they're letting the people on there get on with what needs to be gotten on with. And if people haven't seen that movie Elysium, I recommend having a look at it, because it's very close to probably the way things are going to go if we can sort things out. Which is, sad to say. But Steve, do you have any questions there?
I have a question, yeah. This is one of my own. I thought it up all by myself. I'd be very proud of
Good
me.
man.
It's just, I know a lot of people are into meditation. This is kind of backtracking a little bit, but a lot of people are into meditation and they find it very useful for all aspects of their daily life. I'm just wondering, Solaris, the fact that when you kind of you raise your vibration through meditation, and this kind of it can be maybe it comes up on a radar somewhere, and people can use it. Is there any way that you can either encrypt or protect yourself, say when you are meditating?
Right. Well, I would like to say a Faraday cage. I don't know if that would work or not, but it's a possibility. And also, I've heard things about caves and going underground. But, you know, it reminds me of the old mystery schools. Like, they all went underground and disappeared. And maybe that's why. Maybe they needed to do that to maintain their spirituality. Who knows? But it's very interesting. But that's my take. I mean, I don't think you can escape this. And when I was hit with the program, I was trying to break away from the technology as best I could. And I went into float tanks. And I liked the float tank. But, boy, I would make a great astronaut because the communication was so good. I mean, unbelievably clear. So I never could escape it, not at all. And I did try a Faraday cage, and that didn't seem to work either. So I would suspect that maybe if you're meditating, if you want to reinforce things through some kind of a Faraday cage or use some kind of technology, I do know radionics is really good for broadcasting out things that are just subtle energy attacks, and that can be manufactured. So if you have a radionics device, I would suggest maybe using that. That would be a really good system to work with, and also the Tesla coils.
Right, okay. Radionics device. I mean, Radionics to us is a company over here. What can you tell us a bit more about that device?
Okay, well, the one I'm familiar with, and this has been a while since I've used one of these, but when I was using them back in the 90s, it was based on a computer program that would, you take a DNA sample of the person's hair, whatever, and you broadcast energies out that are attacking. And there was a workup system that you could actually create, and it's really interesting. This woman developed this on Maui, but there was a system that you could use that would say that you're being hit with something. It was actually it could detect when you were getting hit with something. So what she would do is run a broadcast with a little antenna that would literally deflect attacks that were being transmitted to the person's energy field. And what that does is it clears out your aura, your four-body system, your subtle energy field, and it removes any exterior intrusions. And I haven't done any extra research on that right now, but I think that's I really get the impression that's one of the better things to look at for radionics. I think that's where we're heading in order to deflect this stuff.
Right, okay.
If you're not hearing the communication, I think radionics is the way to go. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We do have a question. Something that Miles actually mentioned last week as well, and about the powers to be trying to change the dimensional reality we're in, so they can go to where they want to bring the population and bring the planet. Now, right. I've also come across a whistleblower that Kerry Cassidy interviewed, and he said that. Now, again, it's all hearsay because I've no proof on the matter. But he said that every time they try and change this dimensional reality to where they want, they're making it worse for themselves. Because whatever way the universe works, it's not allowing them to do it. And they keep, it keeps going back to where it should be, but it's making it worse for them. So every time they change it, they're making it worse rather than better. Have you heard anything about them making any dimensional changes or using frequency to do that?
Well, the thing is, when I look back on the Brill Society, for example, or when they used certain mediums to manipulate outcomes, I mean, they've always been using psychics and people who are very gifted spiritually to open up gateways, stargates, and celestial areas so they could get and acquire archives. I mean, the Nazis were really big on acquiring as much archive, information, artifacts, rather, is the word I'm looking for, that they could possibly get their hands on. So once again, I think they're using the mass collective and energy and consciousness through programming to try and, yes, create a reality that they can reside in or open up a gateway where they can live in. Absolutely, I agree with that. But I don't think it's going to work either, and I've said this in my other book too, is that because the universe is a very big place, it's a multiverse, and it's very intelligent, it's very loving, it doesn't believe in control and manipulation, it doesn't support man's need to control and manipulate. I mean, there's free will honored in the universe. These guys are violating free will, and when they do that, they have to, there's this karmic boomerang that happens. So they're probably going to wind up in a black hole if they don't watch out. But once again, we don't want to all go along for the ride. And if they start entrapping people through frequency, they're going to pull everybody down with them like the Titanic. So what we need to do is break away from that energetic and raise our consciousness and keep ourselves to a higher level of frequency so that we're not being pulled into what they want us to be. Because we don't belong there.
Yeah, well, see, the likes of people like Drumvalo Melchizedek talks about the Merkaba and learning how to, use a Merkaba. I mean, is he getting people to do that purely to protect ourselves, or would you think that him not knowing about what's going on, making people more susceptible to the system?
Well, I don't think his intention is to make people vulnerable, but sometimes I think people can be a little naive, especially if you're working in full light, like consciousness. Sometimes you don't realize that there's darkness shadowing you. And I didn't realize anything was bothering me until I was inducted in 2004, because you get to living into these really high frequencies and you think that you're invincible. But I would say that I think his work is good, and Melchizedek, the transmission of a Melchizedek is very powerful. I'm actually a Melchizedek myself, so I was initiated into that a long time ago. So I can tell you that you're working with a very high frequency in consciousness and things that are very celestial and loving. And I think, the people on this planet really need to start resonating with higher overtones of who they are as a higher self, oversoul, and superconscious is really my take. And that would help derail some of this evil that's happening.
Well, we need to raise our vibrations. That's what we need to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, part of meditation is, unfortunately, part of doing meditation is actually doing that, is to stay positive, because we all vibrate in a frequency, and depending on the frequency, I suppose the way you see yourself will depend on the level of the frequency that you're actually vibrating on at that time.
Knowledge will do that.
Yeah, knowledge will do that. Like if you have somebody who's a Buddhist, they'd be operating on a higher level of frequency than somebody who knows nothing about spirituality or meditation. Mm-hmm. So we have to. So their level, the Buddhist level of consciousness and vibration will be higher. So we all have to start educating ourselves and learning about this and opening our mind to more things. And this is what Open Your Mind is all about. Is to get people to realize to do this. It's not just a case of. It's okay knowing who you are as a sovereign person, which is fine, but there's a lot more to what's going on than just the physical, and we have to realize that. We have to realize that we are all energy, and we all resonate on a frequency, and what we need to do is lift that frequency up, lift our consciousness level. We need to do that, and I think that's half the battle what we all need to do. But Steve, you have a question there?
Yeah, I have two questions. One, Solaris, is from Karen Quinn Tostado. From United We Strike Radio. Karen sent us a message just saying to ask you, what about crystals for protection?
Well, I've heard good things about crystals. I know that they can accentuate your vibration, so you can certainly use them for healing and for shielding yourself. At the same time, I don't think people who are really interconnected with the communication system are going to get any relief from that. But if you're not being hit with the program and you want to be deflecting these attacks, I would say that would be a good setup for your bedroom at night, and putting some crystals around. I will tell you that my house was fully charged with such beautiful energy when I was inducted into the program, so a lot of that didn't really matter. I mean, I had some really powerful vortexes of ascension energy in my home, and as powerful and as shielded as I was, they tagged that field.
So it may be beneficial to some people, but it wasn't in your case.
No, not at all. But I love crystals too, and I see them as always positive. So
yeah, definitely. They do have good properties.
They do. I carry two in my pocket all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, to try and get rid of the pain in my shoulder, but it's not working. Another question came in from Vibe. This came in a while ago. I was trying to kind of wait for the appropriate time to ask you, but we didn't really seem to have one, so I'm going to ask it now. Vibe was wondering, what's your take on the moon being a satellite, and if some of Saturn's moons are also satellites?
That's interesting. I was just talking to my guest last night, and he was telling me the moon was a satellite. I get the feeling that it's manufactured, that it's under intelligent control, that there's something about it that's definitely artificial. And I haven't looked too far into it, but I do think that there's a lot of technology that's still there, a lot of things that are being deployed from the moon to the Earth, and there's a lot of interest there. I mean, you have a species that's residing there, and then of course we have people here from this world that I believe are actually there as well. So I think that there's a lot going on that planet, and I do think it's an artificial design.
Funny enough, I did come across some information saying that our moon is the only moon that doesn't revolve. All the other moons in the planets in their galaxy, they all revolve, they all turn as they're going around the planet, but our moon is the only one that stays exactly the way it is around the Earth.
Yeah, there was word that there was actually 3 moons at one time. I can't remember where I read that, but yeah, there's something very auspicious about the moon. I used to really love looking at the moon, and now that I realize that there's so many things there and people mining it, I get kind of annoyed, and I don't see it the way I used to. Once you become awakened and the veil comes down, you start looking at things more closely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you have to look at everything. What's kind of mad about what we're into, I mean, the alternative media and what we talk about, or the new media, as some people refer it to, is that it's just getting the evidence. You know, it's great being able to talk about it and have a very open mind about it to entertain what's going on. But it's all down to evidence, really, at the end of the day. It's research and experiences and evidence. Now, I know what you're going through. You have all the evidence for that because it's happening you. But for the bigger, the things that are happening on a bigger scale, like if we say the moon's a satellite, it's getting the proof and getting the evidence and putting it all together. And it's like a big, as I say, a big geocycle jigsaw, that if you only see one or two bits of the jigsaw, you know, you can easily make an assumption and get it wrong. But when you start putting the pieces together, then you start seeing the bigger picture. And it's just getting the information.
Oh, I agree, and so much of it has been censored since birth. I mean, people have been lied to since they were born onto this planet. So acquiring the data really takes cellular memory. And at the soul level, we get a lot of 100% accuracy with the spiritual design because the soul doesn't lie and the Akashic records won't lie. Man will. Man will censor data, but the Akashics and the universal archives will not lie. And so that's where you access your data for more confirmation. But yeah, it's really hard to get physical evidence with a lot of these things. But what you do is you be smart. You know, you track things, you track information, and just use your mind.
Exactly. And tell me, what's your thoughts on this whole idea about moving? Because we know the New Age movement has been taken over. You know, I mean, some people who are not familiar with the whole spirituality stuff, sometimes they refer to it as New Age mumbo jumbo, and sometimes there are bits of the New Age stuff which is mumbo jumbo, and I totally agree. But there are other parts which are very, very poignant and very interesting and are beneficial to us. And so we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what's your take on the move over from 3D to 5D, which seems to be the big discussion point at the moment?
Well, it's interesting because I agree too that some of the New Age stuff is a lot of foo-foo. But then there's some you have to find the right teacher, first of all, and somebody who's actually gone through true initiations, and that really means a lot. If you manage to have and receive initiations which are based on a celestial race or the inner planes, then everything changes. Your world changes completely. I believe that we are multidimensional beings and that we live on a multidimensional planet and that we are in a multidimensional multiverse, so that everything is multidimensional. We're not limited to any one dimension in any form or design. All of these dimensions are defined by frequency and vibration, which means as soon as you alter your vibration, you can enter another dimension. That's the whole idea with them putting a frequency fence up, is to keep you here in limitation. So what you do is just by consciousness and motion, you can alter these frequencies and go into these bands of energy. Once again, they're like radio signals. They can be a mock radio signal, or they can be regular radio signals, but you're dealing with energy and consciousness and motion. So I don't look at the 5D. I think that's limiting the people. It's more than that. It's a lot more than that.
Right, okay. That's interesting. Very interesting. We do have another question there from Bob. Just wants to know, can you tune in to the Akashic records?
Yeah, anybody can. Absolutely.
Right.
I do it all the time.
So we all can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing that's hidden in the universe. That's the beauty of it. The universe will give you everything you need, everything you choose to hear or listen to. It's man that runs the interference, or the people on this earth, whatever you want to call them. That's where the interference is coming from. The universe will run no interference for you at all. And the thing is with the Akashic records, I mean, your intent is to be with a pure heart and a pure mind to access data that's based on higher consciousness and truth. And the universe's representation of what's really happening. And that's where you go for information. You certainly don't go to disembodied spirits or entities or mock communication system or some handler who's trying to tell you how to live your life.
Well, that's quite relevant. Well, the fact that, you know, if you go to these people, you don't know whether you're actually getting the real information anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to use discernment. And I always told people, you know, I've done readings for a very long time for people, and I really got burned out on doing them because I realized I'm into empowering people. I don't want to tell them what to do, because you can make choices by consciousness and motion every single day, and all the psychic will do is read the energy in the moment. Well, that moment goes in like less than a microsecond. So everything changes by dynamic and consciousness, and I try to relay that to people a lot, that really follow your own internal compass, because that's what's going to give you all the answers.
Well, here's the difference with being a psychic and being a spiritual medium. For me, a psychic picks up the energy clairvoyantly, and it'll just pick up the energy on what's happening at the moment, where a spiritual medium will link to their spirit guide. Now, you can kind of put a question in the air and go, well, is it a spirit guide or is it a covert technology that the person's getting the information from? I don't know. But there is a difference between, and I do kind of differentiate between there's a lot of psychic people out there, but there's very few spiritual mediums out there. Because the spiritual medium can work psychically and spiritually, where a psychic will just work psychically. And it's something that is kind of something from my background that I'm familiar with. But again, we have to talk about that loosely because we don't know who they're connecting to. But listen, we've reached that time in the evening, and it's been fantastic information. Thank you for coming on to the show. It's been brilliant, and we've learned so much. And I'm hoping that our listeners, have learned so much about, synthetic telepathy and TIs and the technology out there. It's frightening, but just to kind of sum things up, what's your solution? Give us a few ideas what you'd, let's end up on a positive note. What would be your solutions now for people who might be affected by this, and what can they do? Where can they go? What support can they get? What do you think they should be doing?
If they're being hit with any type of a program, do the research, start looking into this technology itself and understand what you're dealing with, and then look at the solutions insofar as what I was talking about with Tesla coils are good, different types of radionics devices are good, anything that will give you some relief from this technology is good, but also documenting the data, documenting the experiences, and finding a support system and a support group for sure. And you also want to make sure that you, this information needs to be exposed to these these governments. They need to be really kind of hit right in the head with this stuff. I mean, so that's what I'm looking at, is really coming for getting more disclosure out on this stuff and really pressing them for disclosure, and also paying restitution to people who have been tortured and lost their careers for it. I think that something needs to be paid for the people that are suffering. And I mean, that's a whole different arena, but at the same time, when you take something from somebody, you have to give back. And I think they've taken way too much.
Well, I am a big believer of the universal law of karma, and I do see karma as a big elastic band, and you can only stretch it for so much until it shoots back and hits you. So, if and again, I've said this before on the show, some people don't believe in, certain universal laws, and I do believe karma is one of them. And if you get somebody who's at the edge of the cliff, and they say, well, I don't believe in the law of gravity, and then jump off, it doesn't mean that because they don't believe it, that they can just walk straight out and not actually fall. So just because they don't believe it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That's
absolutely.
That's just my spin on it. But listen, thanks a lot for coming on. It's much, much appreciated. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your details, websites and everything else off you so we can let people know where they can find you and tune in. Okay. But thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Solaris, thank you very much from me as well. It's been educational, informational, and there's a lot of people looking for your links there, and a couple of people also saying that you've been an excellent guest, and we have to do a part 2 with you. So there may be a part 2 in the pipeline if you're up for that.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay,
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it really has. Can you just give us out the website address again, or if a YouTube channel, or any way people can
Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives is my website, and I do have a YouTube channel called Medusa Storm 001.
Right, can you give me out the web address again? You said it too fast and I couldn't type.
Okay. Night Shadow.
Is that night with an N or a K?
It's night with an N. Anomaly Detectives. You can Google that and you'll find my website.
Okay, Night Shadow Anomaly Detective, and the YouTube is Medusa
Storm 001.
Medusa Storm 001 on YouTube. Okay. We'll get that in the chat box now, in both chat boxes, and then people can find out more about you. Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much.
Solaris,
Steve.
again, thanks a lot for coming on. Much, much appreciated. Just stay with us there for a minute, and we'll pop over to a bit of music, and we okay, Steve?
We're all good in the hood.
We're all good. We'll be back after this. We'll catch you in a minute.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Okay, and we're back. A little bit of Queen and Freddie Mercury, I Want to Break Free, just leading us into and taking us out of the break, and I know some people don't like it. Snowflake, I don't know what's wrong with you. You don't appreciate good music.
Good 80s music.
Nice bit of 80s. Clanad, I don't think so, Andy. Not on this programme.
Well, actually, I don't mind a little bit of Clanad.
Well, seeing as though I have the computer over here that has the music on it,
yes.
We're not having any.
Yeah, Steve's now producing the show, and the computer's over where he is, so I can't do anything about it, I'm afraid. So Clanad's just going to have to wait for another time. Brilliant guest, great information from Solaris. We will try and do a part 2. She'll be up for a part 2 in a couple of months' time. Apologies for my kind of coughing. I just have a sore throat, and I'm not feeling the best at the moment. But we'll soldier on anyway, as usual. Now, next week we have a guest. Guest on is Mark Apazio, and that's going to be a very, very good interview because Mark is very, very. His mind is so open to what's going on and aware. And what myself and Steve talk about the fluid belief system is Mark has a similar system. We call it fluid belief. He calls it something else, but basically it's the same thing. And so we look forward to talking to Mark about that because it sounds like it's going to be very, very interesting. But again, just to let you know, just go over about a couple of things for the people just tuning in now. We have Vin coming up. Has Vin told us what's happening later?
I never actually asked him.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, Vin. Maybe if you can just let us know who we got on tonight.
Okay.
But it's going to be good anyway. It's always good.
Yeah, Vin says Billy Maguire for the first hour, then Johnny Bravo, talking about the official offer process and other solutions. So Vin's going to be on in about 8 minutes' time. We're going to be switching off to Vin. Again, just a quick mention, the videos of the light bulbs are now on our YouTube channel, just to show the 3 different types of light bulbs and the power that the bulbs use. The LED bulb wins hands down. I know they're a little more expensive, but the quality of the light is fantastic. It's superb. I can't complain. Very, very good bulb. Excuse me. And the other video has got to do with the credit cards, the RFID on your credit card, debit cards, being how it can be scanned very easily. And I use my own mobile phone to do it, just to show you it working and how it can be done. The criminals will use something a bit more advanced than a mobile phone. That was only purely for demo purposes.
We heard the chap that done the other video that we seen. The voice that he was using said that he could be within, I think, 1 meter of the person whose credit card details he was going to obtain.
Yeah.
So that's 3 feet.
Yeah, if you go onto YouTube and type in RFID credit card scam, you'll actually get videos of the guy in America showing you how easy it was to rob the actual credit cards. But I wanted to do it over here because we have our credit cards over here in Ireland. Our Bank of Ireland and AIB and all the credit cards are all issuing RFID. And, they're supposed to make it easy for us so we don't have to type in our PIN number. We just wave the card across the scanner. But the flaw in the system is that the criminals can use that as well. And all you have to do is stand beside you, sit beside you, and just scan your wallet, your purse or your bag, whatever, and they'll take your credit card details without even nicking your credit card.
They only have to sit. They could be sitting in a coffee shop on a laptop, looking like someone who's just doing his online business or whatever, and everyone who passes by the coffee shop could be having their credit card details nicked. Actually, there's another one I just heard during the week, and this is a warning to, I don't know how new or how old it is, but anyone who's using an ATM, if there's anyone standing behind you at the ATM, they recommend, and this is common sense anyway, cover your PIN number, because what's happening now at the moment is if people are standing behind you at an ATM, if you don't cover your PIN number, they're watching your PIN number, and then they're dropping cash on the ground. So, most people being law-abiding citizens and kind of helpful, Irish people being helpful, so, you'll kind of bend down and you'll help them pick up their money. And while you're picking up the money for them, they're actually taking your credit card out of the machine, or your bank card out of the machine, and putting a dodgy one in anyway. So now they've got your PIN number and your bank card.
Yeah.
It's not very elaborate, I know.
No, but it's called shoulder surfing.
Ooh, it's got a name, has it?
Yeah, it's called.
I didn't know that.
Shoulder surfing. So you have to be very careful. I try and get cash back in my local shop rather than go to ATMs because they have skimming machines on the ATMs as well. Some of them. So you just have to be careful of that. So yeah. So as I say, there's another video that we have to do. I have to get the parts in for that. And when I get the parts in, then I'll do the video and put it up there. And, it's not 100%, it's not in a laboratory, but, as I say, it's just general testing. So check it out, see what you think. As I say, don't forget, go along to Facebook, give us a like, and that means that, when we put up videos and put out information, you'll be on the list, and you'll get it. If you don't have a Facebook account, go to YouTube, or just register on site. We have t-shirts available, we have bumper stickers available, and I'm sure if there's enough money, Steve will be available.
Yes.
For weddings and bar mitzvahs.
for anything. I'll attend the opening of an envelope.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, well listen, we're going to pass off the bin. So that's really it. So everybody stay safe, have a good week. If you have any links or any information, send them in. We enjoy the links that are coming in. Sorry we can't get them all out because we do get quite a few links, so we have to kind of filter them down and we send out the ones that we think are quite relevant to the people that listen into the show. But so thanks again for your support, and any information, as I say, you come across, let us know. You know, we need to get the information out there. We need to keep waking people up. That's the thing. Keep waking people up and give them the information, give them the evidence, give them the research. That's the only way we're going to do it. And good luck to everybody else out there. Like I know Ben's doing the TV show and Finn's doing his bit on People's Internet Radio. We just need more people really out there talking, whether it's a radio show or whether it's just out promoting, letting people know that there's alternative media out there talking about these subjects. Just promote it and go out there and tell people about what's going on. Because if we don't get these mainstream parties out on the next election, we may live in servitude for the rest of our life. That's it. We have to get them out. And I did have a knock on the door by a Fianna Fáil politician, would you believe, during the week. And I educated them to direct democracy, and I kind of said, well, the fact that, he wants to get into government, he actually doesn't understand the party whip system. And if he does, then he's obviously part of the problem and not part of the solution. So he realised that he wasn't going to get a vote off me, so he scurried out of the actual drive to the next house, hopefully to see if he can get a vote. I don't have time for them. Direct democracy is where it is. Or participatory democracy, which is another party. So it's direct democracy, but under a different name. And we will try and get more of these parties on there and talk about, what's going on. But definitely we need to stop these parasites getting in. So just wake people up and let them know. But for myself, have a good night, have a good week, stay safe, take it easy, and we'll talk to you next week. From Alan James, take it easy. Bye bye.
Signing off.
Sign off.
I was just going to say, we're waking people up. Maybe we should have some in the shop there, some OYM baseball bats. Wake someone up with a baseball bat.
Very good.
No. We don't condone violence. Anyway, yeah, okay, for myself, Stephen George as well, have a great week, and we'll do it all again. Same time, same bat channel, next week. So until then, I'll say sayonara, and stay tuned on TNN or PIR for the sultry sounds of Vincent. Good night.
Until you